This is actually really awkward to type like that because like my self-built hobo boom pole, like the counterweight on the other end is a hammer. The perfect position is in a way that slightly turned it too much. The hammer hits the radiator, which is really, really loud, and my roommate is sleeping in the other room because she's like really tired and she really deserves to sleep.
I don't understand. It's only like 1 a.m. We're now in Waterfall. This time, you may have noticed in the first parts, since I'm editing this, I started a kind of rule set for this entire recording, which is all the moments that are just fun at face value, that you could look at as an outsider and it's just funny, but that never come back up again. There's nothing hidden behind them. I will try to skip all of those, unless we have anything interesting to say about them.
Yeah. Sounds makes a lot of sense, yeah.
If you're an expert on the game and you're wondering, where's Onion Sun?
The Tom Bombadil of Undertale.
I have a tweet here of Toby that's just saying, why is Onion Sun even here? Why did I make this character? We're going to mostly speed to Waterfall, or at least through large parts of the zone, because Waterfall is a pretty lonely zone. There aren't many people in most of the space. The zone even starts with Sans inviting you to a restaurant, and it's a fun scene, and he reminds you of Flowey, but it never comes back up again, and it doesn't even change in other versions. I feel this isn't worth discussing.
Yeah, no, it's okay to skip that. Let's move on.
The central character of Waterfall, of course, is Undyne, who we meet as a menacing, dark warrior who is obviously looking to kill us. Then there's about half an hour of gameplay that we can simply ignore.
Yeah.
The first big thing we are getting to is the piano puzzle, which offers you just the option to play 5 notes. 2 rooms later, there's a broken down statue where you can hear from the sound of the rain falling onto him, if you give him an umbrella, a melody.
Oh.
That melody also, we will get to that at a later point, I guess, is the memories theme that plays whenever we are reminded of things that happened like a few decades ago. And if you repeat that on the piano, you open a door to the secret room with the legendary artifact. There's one room after the statue where you get the umbrella, and you can give it to the statue. If you played the game when it first came out, it's really hard. Like, you have to basically understand notes and be able to hear which note this is.
Yeah.
If you're not a music person, like I am not, then you probably didn't do this on your own. He since fixed it to be much more doable. Like, there's a noticeable break in the memory theme, so you can tell where it even starts.
Okay, this is good. This makes me feel not super stupid.
The legendary artifact is one of those moments that's fun at face value.
Oh, now I remember. Yeah, yes. It's the dog poo, isn't it?
I guess this is the right moment to establish 2 things. First of all, whenever you try to call Toriel on your phone throughout this entire playthrough, after leaving the ruins, if she is still alive, she never answers. Which seems a bit weird to most players, like, has she abandoned me? But the answer is in this room, because if you try to call her now, the call comes from inside the dog, because he has also stolen her phone. When you try to pick up the artifact, there's a dog in your inventory who is blocking it, and you have to drop the dog to get to the artifact. But dropping him just releases him and he steals the artifact, but he leaves behind the poop.
Okay.
And that's basically your reward. Imagine several sets of air quotes around this word, because that stuff is infinitely recharging. Like, you can heal yourself as much as you want with it. It just takes a lot of time, and it's not really worth it. And that's the actual reward. There's no way to get the legendary artifact even if you cheat.
Oh, okay.
And the other major thing is this dog is the self-insert of Toby Fox, the developer.
Okay.
And whenever you see him, that's Toby making a joke, but possibly also just going, I was too lazy to put anything here, so the dog just stole it. Just like in Papyrus fight. Throughout most of Waterfall, you're being pursued by Undyne. Whenever she sees you and notices you, she starts attacking you and you have to flee. Someone else who's basically always there is the Monster Kid, who we have seen for a short moment in Snowden. Monster Kid, I'm only mentioning them because this is the kind of NPC that just talks at you.
Yeah.
This is an old-fashioned RPG NPC, if you ask me, who just tells me some stuff I don't care about, who is annoying by interrupting my gameplay, basically. I feel like now is the time that I get to move again, and then there's the Monster Kid again. So even in this playthrough where we're not even mad, Monster Kid is somehow not likable.
Yeah, that they are so annoying on purpose, ?
I don't know, but it's possible.
Yeah.
If you take into consideration that they are unchanged for future playthroughs. And at the end of one of Undyne's big attacks, you just fall down. We have to assume pretty far. You land on flowers again, like the first time, and you are awoken by some kind of vision where someone is asking you by name if you are okay. And then you get to walk through the garbage dump, which is where the yellow names from earlier are stored if you told them to throw them away.
Oh, this is glorious.
You also get to fight the Mad Dummy, who is also one of those fights it's fun, it's okay, but there's not much more to him.
Yeah,
except
the music is really great.
That's why I'm bringing him up, because I think his music is a reference to an RPG Maker game that came out, I think, 1 year earlier and was pretty popular. It's called OFF.
Yes, I always heard people comparing it to Undertale, and you saying that it has not that much to offer in the face of Undertale.
Yeah, in the game you mostly fight ghosts. This is the fight theme from OFF. This is the fight team against the Mad Dummy. And it's clearly not stealing, but I think it's a very explicit acknowledgement of this is another game where you fight ghosts, and he's aware of it. Also, short side note on OFF, if you compare to Undertale, it just doesn't hold up for the entire time of the game. I thought, where's the twist? Is this some kind of elaborate ruse? Is everything here an abstraction? Are we inside someone's body? Everything we are seeing is just a metaphor for something? No, it's all real. You're just a guy who kills everyone.
Oh.
That's the twist.
Oh. Okay.
It turns out killing people is bad. That's OFF.
Well, that's moving on.
Defeating him means you get to enter Waterfall, the city, which consists of one empty house in the shape of an angry fish and 2 more houses, one of which you can't enter. There's a snail race and stuff, but it's not important. The most important part about Waterfall City is that you can unlock the tiny bird here, who you've seen him earlier, basically at the start of Waterfall, and he can take you across 3 slots of water and basically allows you to skip the entire gameplay part of Waterfall. And he has the most gloriously overblown soundtrack.
Yeah, it's like, 30 seconds or something that you need to fly over this small gap?
Yeah, he has a soundtrack that's exactly as dramatic as his task is. Since we're looking at a map here, I'll try and put this into the YouTube version. He skips an amazing amount of distance, considering that his music is worth it. The last segment of Waterfall contains the secret Temmie village.
Oh, yes. Total fan favorite. Temmie village, often cosplayed, and Temmie, the character, which is, what is Temmie actually? Like a mixture of dog and cat, and also like an artist who worked on the game and a friend of Toby's, impersonated in this thing that on this. Am I getting this right? There's one original Temmie, but like Temmie is also like the race of those things.
You're completely correct on all of this.
Okay, yeah, and Temmie Village is filled with various Temmies who are mostly named Temmie, but one is named Bob.
Yeah.
And they tell you various things, but all in the same kind of gibberish. I don't know.
Actually, there is. We only found one voice actor who really managed to capture the imagined voice of Temmie.
Yes.
Their SoundCloud version, I think, is down already, but I'll still put it in here. The file was called Hoi, I'm Temmie, and this is it.
Hoi, I'm Temmie. Tem, watch egg. Egg will hatch. Tem, proud parent. Humans, such a cute. Whoa, that's a lot of months. Can Tem really accept? Okay, so Tem go to college and make you proud. Tem heard human allergics to Tem. That okay. Tem understand. Tem also allergics to them. Hives!
Temmie Village basically is one of those kinds of game secrets that in the age of the internet just can't stay a secret. But if for some reason you are listening to this podcast trying to glean new information and find secrets, Temmie Village is after Waterfall Town, in the first room with the glow cap mushrooms that illuminate your path, at the lower right corner. And I think she's mostly in there, besides being totally fun, because I would say, besides Toby, she's the most significant contributor to the game. She made a bunch of enemies, and basically she did some art and wrote some characters. Despite that, I would still mostly call this game the work of a genius in the old-fashioned sense of one person who had a big vision and made it a reality.
Yes.
Compared to a studio work or something made by a committee.
Yeah. I think the level of consistency is hardly reached if you have to discuss things in meetings and appeal to a market and stuff like that.
Yeah, but we're going to address what I think is Toby's genius in the post-gameplay discussion.
Yeah.
And at this point, we are already at the final boss of Waterfall.
Yeah, Undyne.
This is a point where I think it's reasonable to assume that Monster Kid is intentionally an NPC that talks at you and interrupts your gameplay, because Undyne's reveal at this point, I'm going to tell you the deep story of my people and how we got there. No, wait. I'm going to kill you. Why should I?
The one thing everyone asked themselves since they were 8 in every movie ever, especially in like James Bond movies and shit.
Yeah, this immediately makes her lovable to me. Like,
yes.
I didn't know what to think about her, but at this point, we just got off another Monster Kid meeting, and she's just telling me that we're not going to listen to 5 minutes of exposition, which is great. That's exactly the mood I was in for.
Yeah, it's good.
We later basically realized that she's the only hero in this entire game, so it's only reasonable that she's not going to exposit us, because that's a bad people thing.
Yeah, I think the Undyne fight is the first fight in the game where people start to struggle with the difficulty, depending on how much games they played before. I think this is the first major pull in difficulty in the game.
Yeah, I think she's even the first serious fight that gets problematic. To me, it mostly became a problem because she tells you at the start of the fight that you can't run if your heart is not red. And she never repeats it again. So if you weren't listening at that point, you just won't figure out how to get out of this fight, which is running and then literally walking away.
Yes.
I think the problem in this fight, which I would count this detail as a downfall, like one of the major low points in design, is that she reacts too much. Like, you have options at interacting with her, and she does react to them, and there's no indication that it stops working at some point.
Yes. I know what you mean, yeah. But all that if you don't want to kill her, of course. I mean, you can just go in there and straight up kill her, right?
Yeah, you can. But we are assuming at this point that you don't.
Yeah, that you. Yeah, of course, you don't want to.
Because basically, even as a fresh player, I realized that not killing is an option for all of those enemies. She doesn't seem like the type that would force you to kill her.
Yeah.
So basically, you win by surviving some attacks and running away. She chases you into the next zone, into Hotland, where she collapses from it being too hot. And you have the option of pouring a glass of water on her.
Yeah, with the conveniently placed water dispenser right over the bridge.
Yeah, you also have the option of just pouring the water on the ground in front of her.
Oh, really?
And you can even continue doing that for like 20 times, which forms a small puddle.
This is terrible. Wow.
And if you return later after doing that, a small tree is growing there.
But only if you do it like 20 times?
Yeah, but just like a moment shortly before the boss fight, where you get to either save the monster kid from falling down or not, the monster kid is then going to be saved by Undyne. The game never punishes you for doing that or not doing it. I think that's pretty nice of the game, because it's one small, obscure moment that you wouldn't really reload the game to figure out, and you don't get to see the consequences of until much later, and whatever you do, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's kind of an unusual exception.
Kind of. I guess if this were an important moment, like if you have to pour the water on Undyne so that she survives this or something, I guess this would be the kind of thing you have to tell new players at the start of the game. Like, if you get to pour water on someone, do it, because if not, you're going to ruin your save file. So I think it's a pretty reasonable choice that this is basically without consequence. I would tell new players, unless you use the attack action in fights to kill someone, everything else is fine and you don't have to be worried, because there are going to be some moments later on where it's like, is this dangerous? Is there a way to avoid it? We're going to that in Hotland, where we are now.
Hotland, yes. It's getting hot.
What?
I said it's getting hot. No, it's not funny anymore.
I'm going to edit myself and your answer out and putting in it's getting hot in here.
Okay, nice.
We're also going to skip most of Hotland, because Hotland is majorly gameplay.
Okay.
And puzzles.
Mm-hmm.
And some fights. So this is going to be short, I think.
Okay.
Hotland immediately introduces the two new characters that define this segment, which is Dr. Alphys and Metaton. I think they have a very strong intro, where you get a very clear idea of what kind of people those two are. You're learning a lot about those two in the quiz that Metaton forces on you immediately. Because this quiz, I think that's one of the high points in terms of design, and there's so much stuff in there that you're going to just miss, basically because you can't choose all of the answer options, and because there's time pressure and you just won't see everything immediately.
Oh, yeah. Also another thing I didn't think of doing afterwards. I've never seen most of these answers, actually.
Some important details: you cannot die in this fight, because if you answer incorrectly, he zaps you and halves your HP rounded up.
Yeah, okay.
Even if you end up with 1 HP, you're never going to die from it.
Okay.
Because Metaton isn't actually the killer robot that he is claiming to be, at least not to the degree that it appears. There are several hints in there. Like, one of the first questions is, would you smooch a ghost? And all the answers are, heck yeah. He tells you how the robot was made by asking you what he is made of. All of this you're going to learn about more in the post-game, if you care to. He also asks who Dr. Alphys has a crush on. Whichever answer you choose is deemed correct, because Alphys likes a lot of people, and it doesn't really matter which one you choose, but depending on the option you chose, you're going to learn a bit more about her on your first try.
What people are there to choose from?
He offers yourself, Undyne. I'm going to make sure about the other two. Let me look it up. Okay, your options are Undyne, Asgore, the human, and don't know. And each of those options does give you a look into her character that you would otherwise only learn a lot later. Also, Alphys cheats throughout most of the quiz by indicating with her hands which of the options is true, which I didn't notice, which seems kind of weird in retrospect if you already know that she is basically trying to be the hero here. I think what's going on is Alphys told Metaton to play along, to make a big show out of this, and to let her appear as the hero who's helping you so that she can be likable.
And sweating profusely.
But he is still a very strong individual and does it the way he likes to. So there are a bunch of questions in the quiz already that tease her, and I guess he goes overboard very often during the later parts. I think she didn't expect him to do it to this degree, so that's why she's sweating. #headcanon.
Oh yeah, okay. Yeah, that makes sense. But it sounds very, very consistent.
And once you get out of this segment, the next semi-problem starts up, because Alphys also turns out as one of those characters who talks at you.
Yeah, she's basically Tumblr.
That too, like almost everything she tells you while you're playing through Hotland is irrelevant. But the main problem for me is you're walking, and then your phone rings, and Alphys is telling you something again.
Yeah.
And it doesn't even matter what she's saying. I think it's annoying that a character who is supposed to be likable keeps interrupting your gameplay to tell you something non-significant. And I'm not even sure if Toby meant this to be.
Yeah, at this point, I really don't know what would have been the problem to just let her talk while it's playing.
That would have completely solved the situation for me. If her text box had moved on while you're still in control, that would have been perfect.
Yeah, and have like auto scroll in the dialogue, and it would even enhance the comic relief, like that she keeps talking to him. It is kind of the joke.
And you just don't care.
Yeah, exactly. And you move on it and just like scrolls through, and she tells you about Kissy Cutie Mew Mew or what it was called, and goes on forever.
There are several more fun scenes with Metaton, like the kitchen segment. The shooter segment.
Oh yes.
The bomb investigation segment. All of those are fun, but there's not much more to them. Whenever you play this again, it's the same and there's no secrets there, except in the bomb disposal segment. I think that's perfectly balanced, because if you do it just right, you're going to finish with like 2 seconds left. And if you're going to fail, it's also going to be very tight, I think, for most people.
Yeah.
That's just good time balancing. The last segment of Metaton that I'm going to move up one step is the opera segment.
Oh yeah.
Which is fun in itself, but it's way more fun if you know that this is a giant Final Fantasy VI reference.
Yeah, this is very true.
I'm going to put in the Final Fantasy VI song now. And this is Metaton's version. Besides all of this, Metaton has a lot of queer stuff about him. I think Metaton manages to represent every major type of queer person there is, all in one person.
Yeah, now you say it.
And he's also, after just this funny segment, going to throw you into the dungeon where the randomizer tile puzzle is, which you thought this was a joke. No, he actually put this into the fucking game and you have to play it. And all the rules that you learned 2 hours ago still apply.
Oh yeah, I remember that. It's just, it's not really an obstacle, but you have to just try around, like bullshit your way through.
I think you have to reload a bunch of times if you want to finish the tile puzzle, but it doesn't really matter. There is no way to get around the ensuing fight. Sadly, whatever you do, it ends the same way, and there's no really fun segment if you win.
Oh, okay.
The things I skipped, first of all, are the Royal Guards, who are 2 bro dudes
Oh, yes.
who are also gay, which is, sadly, that's the entire joke.
Yeah, it's great. It's like they figure out that they're gay during fight, and it's quite adorable.
I mean, they are not deep characters, and it's not, the joke isn't, ha, gay! It's basically just representation.
Yeah.
The other thing I skipped was the spider fight.
Oh, yes.
What's her name?
Muffet.
Right, Muffet, who is in this game because someone paid a lot of money for the Kickstarter.
Oh, she's a Kickstarter character. Didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah, let me look her up again.
That explains why she is like designed or introduced like a major character with any relevance, but doesn't have any in the end, which is kind of sad, I think, because like I actually quite like the character design, and the song is really really great. I think it's definitely one of my favorites. The Spider Dance is just such a good song, such a captivating melody.
Muffet was designed by Michel Tchaikovsky. I assume this is the correct way to say it because it sounds like the famous composer.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, I think she's totally fine on her own. Her downside is that she's not integrated into the story. She never comes up again. Nobody else has any relationship with her. And I would say she is one of the 3 major hard fights.
Yeah, definitely.
If you are not an expert in games, she and the 2 following boss battles, they are basically on one level. Everyone has one of those fights as the hardest neutral fight, I guess.
I think Metaton was the one that I needed the most tries for to get because you need I think I needed quite some time to get the meters, the rating high enough, so to really be able to end the fight in the right way.
It totally varies. I asked a lot of people, and there's no clear agreement which of those fights is the hardest.
Yeah, no, I'm totally aware of it. I'm also hearing different things from different people.
Before we get to Metaton's fight, there's the MTT Hotel.
Oh, yeah, right.
The game always only shows that there are a lot of Metaton brand things throughout the world. Even Papyrus owns some MTT products. And I assume he took control in a capitalist rapture kind of way.
I always wonder if Elf is just like rakes in all the revenue for that. I mean, she's kind of responsible for Metaton, isn't she? So does she finance her studies with all the MTT money, or where does all this?
I don't think so. I don't get the impression that she is rich in any way.
No, right, but she invented him, so it would be just fair. But yeah, well,
I think Metaton is his own person. He probably invests it all in further extending his business empire.
Yeah, probably.
In there, you get to eat with Sense again, and this time he is going to tell you his backstory with Toriel. He never calls her by her name, but it's pretty clear.
Yeah.
And he also gives you another threat, because Sense, he kind of has a dark side. At this point, it's not really clear what he's going on about. But you just notice that he is not entirely a joke character.
Yeah.
I also appreciate that he brings up Toriel in this way. Basically, it links more of the characters that you already know. It gives them relationships with each other without totally forcing it in. In a game made by a hack, you could just have one character say, "Oh yeah, Frank? I like him. We are friends."
Chairman Prescott.
No shit.
You mean ex-Chairman Prescott?
That asshole. He ran out on us 18 months ago.
Oh,
This
God.
time I really am asking
Marcus.
for help. Please,
It's your father.
listen.
Yeah, I noticed.
But he doesn't even say her name, so you have to get it, basically.
Yes.
I guess it raises the stakes in terms of believability of these characters.
Yeah, totally.
Right after the hotel, there's the core, which we can skip in its entirety, because it's only gameplay.
Yeah, it's just fights, right?
Just fights and very minor puzzles. I would like to commend it, though, because the ending, the last bit of the core, it looks kind of like a Pokemon Red-Blue Labyrinth. It reminds me of Team Rocket headquarters.
Yeah.
And I wondered at that point if it somehow generated with teleporters and you have to move through the rooms in the right sequence. But no, you just walk right twice and you're out.
Jesus.
Which is super nice.
Yes.
If you're ever going to do it again, you can basically skip all of this. That's perfect design for replaying this, because nobody cares about the core.
Yeah, I would have hated it if I'd had to teleport around that shit. Oh, Jesus. And like in the right order. And no.
And the core just ends by you fighting Metaton, who we already brought it up. He's one of the 3 top difficulty fights.
Yes.
He's also the most amazing and flashy fights. He has a very good reveal. He's the most fabulous of all characters.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Absolutely. I mean, even in the cross-media fabulousness rating, I think he's pretty high up. Not just like within the game, but also even all over, I don't know, gay sports, anime and all. You see top fab.
His fight basically is a simulation of an actual fight. And I guess this is one of the moments where you can just really visualize what is happening. I imagine for such a basic fight interface with minimal animations, I can see how this is going to look in 3-dimensional space.
Yeah, totally.
There are so many small tricks about this fight. At one point, Metaton allows you to type, to just write what you think about him.
Oh, yeah. This is so good.
There are like 20 different options that all give varying amounts of points. Toby has planned for all the reasonable reactions by players. Profanity, only typing 1 letter, typing nothing, filling the entire screen with garbage, letter chaos, describing various parts of Metaton. By the way, the highest scoring thing you can write is legs.
So, if you just write like the word legs, or...
If you just write legs, I think you get 500 points.
Oh, okay. I actually just a key smash because I was too aware that he probably wouldn't be able to detect what I write. So I didn't expect him to want from me that I actually type what I think. So I just was thinking that he probably judges for the length of what I write. And
he also gives you a fair amount of points if you fill the entire input screen with letters.
Yeah.
Also, if you write Beppis, that's a curse word.
Okay, why that?
I think Toby just uses it as a curse word with his friends, and I think Beppis is just a fun word. Here's a can of Beppis, if you're watching the YouTube version.
Jesus, okay. KnowYourMeme.com says that Beppis is a mispronunciation of the word penis.
Yes.
Which became later associated with the soda drink Pepsi. Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's why this is a can of Beppis right here.
How do we get from penis to Beppis? This, I don't know, this seems very far-fetched.
I think this is a very Vine sauce thing to do.
I just want to quote from the comments of knowyourmeme.com/memes/Beppis. Okay, Doge writes, when underfags realize Know Your May exists, which then Sang Ho Tian answers, Toby Fox just donated money to the GDQ player to name the PC Beepis. Under that, there's a comment from user U, who seems to be a musician at Ponyville Equestria, and writes, autistic Undertale Vine says faggot.
So I was totally right, and this is also a Vine source thing?
I don't know, but like the comments indicate that, yeah.
I think it's really a thing that Vinny does.
Jesus.
The Beppis.
Loses his thing that he loves most in this world, which is his Beppis. I'd like to apologize on behalf of George R.R. Martin for saying Beppis. Let me correct that and just say he loses his cock. So that's George R.R. Martin vernacular.
we are in the final bit of Neutral, the new home.
Yeah. Let's do it.
Which is where you get to hear the actual Undertale while walking through what I assume is an indication that there's a larger monster community and city out there, conveyed with very basic and repeating graphics. The tale itself, told by monsters who just appear while we're walking, I'm not entirely sure how real that is. Like, how much of that is really happening through the character instead of to us. The tale itself is basically, there once were a monster king and monster queen. They had a kid named Azrael. A human fell down and became friends with Azrael, and everyone was happy. At which point my thought as the fresh player was, wait, this is in the past? Am I not that human? Why are they talking about me in the third person? Then the kid became ill and died. Azrael absorbed its energy, went outside to see the humans, but the humans just attacked him, wounded him gravely. Azrael returned and died too.
About that part, do you remember exactly how it is told to the player that Azrael absorbed the kid? It just seems like a really he absorbs the kid. Sounds like you know where I'm getting it, right?
I assume that I cut out the bits where we talk about background knowledge from previous parts, but both the library and some text bits in Waterfall mention how monsters, when they die, turn into basically dust, and you can absorb their energy.
Oh, yeah. Personally, probably knew it, but just didn't remember how it was delivered. Okay.
At that point, with his child dead, the king decided he wants to collect the souls of even more humans, of 7 humans, to destroy the barrier and get out. He already has 6 souls. We are the last one that he needs to get out, which was also alluded to. Undyne mentioned it a few times, but it was still far out in the distance as a problem. The monsters who they told this story in unison, maybe they told the Undertale to the other kids who came there before. I really got the feeling that this is getting personal, and this is clearly happening very, very soon. I'm also very impressed, now that I looked at it again, how perfectly the music is timed with all of this. Because you're not only exploring a long, straight hallway, but basically the moment you're done walking, the music is usually about to end anyways. So he balanced the timing of that song with the length of distance you have to walk.
Yeah, I think it's these kind of details that are like the bass in a music song. Like you don't see them in the first run on first sight or notice what's going on. But like if they were missing, you would really stumble upon some things, or like it would make the whole experience less coherent.
Yeah,
I think.
The next big room is the long hallway leading into the throne room.
Yeah, the most important purpose is like drama and looks, I think.
Yeah, it's the dramatic room in which you meet Sans again, who this time is completely serious. This segment is always called Sans Judgment. He says the more you kill, the easier it becomes to distance yourself.
Oh, snap.
Depending on how many monsters you killed at this point, he will basically judge you in a nonchalant way. When I first went through and had only killed Toriel, he said you'll have to live with that yourself.
Oh, okay. So are there what are the steps in which he judges you? Like, is it specific to the major bosses, or like is there a general count for the random monsters you encounter? How does that work?
Yeah, he basically never judges you more harshly, no matter how many people you killed.
Yeah, okay.
And he mentions that right after this, we're going to meet Asgore, and one of us has to die, and there's no way to escape that. If he kills us, he's going to break the barrier, and they're going to escape. If we kill him, that's not going to happen, and we're going to stay in here. And he has nothing to say on the matter, like which option is better.
Yeah.
I think he doesn't really care. The important bit to me is Sans talks about game mechanics, because he knows about them.
Oh, yeah.
He explicitly mentions stuff that doesn't actually exist to anyone else in the game, we'll have to come back to that another time.
But I think at this point, he talks about that, and it was like kind of like with the execution points and stuff, it was kind of a nice little twist. But I personally still realized to the full like that he was actually not talking like in this kind of tutorial voice like game characters tend to do. Like you start a game in the beginning of the game, like
if you press the X button, you can attack enemies.
Yeah, exactly. Another character explains it to you, and of course it doesn't appear to you like, oh, revolutionary fourth wall meta shit. It's just how games work, and they want to make the tutorial a little bit nice. And that I heard that kind of ring in that dialogue a little bit, so it didn't really grab my attention that much.
Yeah, I think if you were to play the game through once and then stop, this would be a mostly irrelevant detail, not worth mentioning.
Yeah, exactly.
Right after you leave, there's just one more small passageway, and you can choose to move on or to check the side way. And because we are experienced RPG players, of course we're first going to take the side path, because there might be stuff there and we might not be able to go back. And all we find are just coffins, and one of them is meant for you, because this one has your name on it. Like, they prepared a coffin for you. That's a pretty harsh threat, I thought, at that moment.
Yeah, this is if it wasn't clear to you before, at this point, yeah.
And then you're moving on, and you're meeting the king, who is clearly surprised and doesn't seem like someone who is there to kill you, who's looking forward to that.
Yeah, I think the whole dialogue kind of radiates how he was hoping that this wouldn't happen.
We haven't seen him before. We didn't know what he looks like. Once you explore the throne room and you see that there's another throne in the room in the back and it's covered, I thought, shit, I think I killed his wife.
Oh yeah, that's...
He's clearly regretful. He 2 or 3 times tells you, if you're not ready for this, just turn back, make any preparations. Like any good final boss does, he gives you a chance to not engage in the point of no return, which I really respect.
When would it be convenient for you to die?
Also, there are like 5 save points before you get to this point. Like, every room has a save point, because people like us will of course save right before we're going to the boss, and each time you're like, is this the last save point in the entire game? And there's another room, just to build up more tension. I think before we're going to talk about the fight, we should mention that this is the character I cosplay.
Oh yeah. If I can say that at this point, I think it's really nice cosplay. You're the only Asgore on like the German cosplay conventions I've seen that like meets my personal standards, I think.
I think of the major characters, he's like the second least played one. The least one is Dr. Alphys.
Oh.
I think I have never seen one done seriously with actual intent to convey her completely.
Yeah, that's true. I've also only seen like human forms of Alphys or something. I'm always wondering, there's an Undertale group, and there's that sometimes that one character where I can't put my finger on who's that supposed to be, and then I'm like, oh, okay, it's human elf. Okay, okay, all right.
Yeah, also I thought the point of her was that this is a world where if you are meeting a dragon, that dragon is not going to spew fire and trying to kill you. So if you make a human Alphys, that takes away one major point of her design.
Yeah, kind of.
I'd also like to say what Asgore wasn't my favorite character at the time we decided that I was going to do him. We were basically just a troop and said, Goat is obviously going to be Toriel. That's obviously going to be Papyrus, because he's the tall, lanky guy. Which tall characters are left? And I just considered how doable he was. But I really feel for him now. I think he's the most melancholic character in the game.
Yeah, I think at some points, I don't know, it's also in the neutral rule, right? That before you meet him, you hear mostly 2 things. On the one hand, he's probably going to fucking kill you. And at the other hand, he's a big floofball.
Yeah, basically everyone agrees that he's a really nice guy. And I think the monsters, who he of course doesn't kill because he's their king, they have a purely positive image of him. And I imagine the last decades he spent in regret.
Sheesh.
I think it must be a bit lonely if there's only one person left who really understands what you're doing, like what your core policy is.
Yeah, and it's also your ex-wife who's not really on super good terms with you, and also your goats.
Yeah, we're goats. Goats, by the way, are just boss monsters. Like, that's the type of monster they are. I think there's some in-game text that even indicates if you're a goat monster, you're a boss monster.
Oh boy.
So once you're in the final room and you insist you're not going to turn back, you're finally going to see the final boss, who of course has an amazing intro sequence. I think if you didn't yet believe that this is a fight one of us has to leave dead, then this is going to fully convey how serious it is. As he smashes the mercy button and removes it from the game.
Jesus, yeah, that was really intense.
Since he's one of the 3 final bosses in terms of difficulty, many think he is not the hardest. Some people say he's kind of a letdown, but I think the fight is still very serious and his attacks are dramatic and fitting for how hardcore this sequence is.
Yeah, I mean, I think I had more difficulty with Metaton, I think, than with him. But at this point, I wasn't really also worrying about how hard he is, but more like about the emotional stuff. Like, will I be able to spare him or something? Is there any way out that no one's gonna get killed? Or like, how does everything go, like, story-wise?
By the way, if he kills you and you try again, you can talk to him and tell him that he has killed you before, and he nods regretfully.
Oof.
Because he understands. I think he also knows a bit more, but he can't do anything about it, about the meta game stuff.
Okay.
If you kept the cake that Toriel gave you in the ruins and have never used it,
okay,
and you eat it in front of him, he remembers this cake from her. His attack and defense stats fall drastically, making the fight much more manageable.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think the benefits are really relevant because, like, probably almost no one keeps the cake until that point. Like, if you're a normal player in the first run, and it's like really more kind of a, I wouldn't call it Easter egg, but secret background stuff.
It fits in with how I see him and how secretly sad he is.
Yeah.
Even
definitely.
while fighting for his and your life. Oh, I also have one more note about Asgore. There's one bit of the music that I recognize as a Castlevania reference.
Okay.
That nobody else sees this way. I think I'm really just seeing patterns where there's nothing there, like people seeing faces on the moon.
Yeah.
I'm just going to play those 2 tracks back to back.
Okay.
To compare. To be honest, I don't think there's a Castlevania reference in the final boss. It's just there's no relation.
Okay, yeah.
And if you defeat him, you get to choose to kill or mercy him, because somehow the mercy button was stitched together again.
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter, because Flowey kills him, takes over his power, and gains his double final boss shape.
Yeah.
This is also a segment I think we can't say too much about, because it's intense and hardcore and awesome.
Yes, I think this was the most moment I had in the entire game, because like such a dramatic change, like in graphics, especially also in music, and yeah, it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, it's an amazing experience, especially for the first time.
Yes.
But I don't have much more to say about it, because it's really one of those experiences where there aren't any secrets behind it. It's exactly what you're seeing.
Yeah.
I think it's noteworthy that Flowey uses save scumming against you. Like when he manages to hit you, he quick saves the game, and sometimes he quick loads the game to return to a moment that was more favorable to him, which is the first time that like saving and loading has become an explicitly real thing in the world, which I love the idea that there's just an enemy who abuses the save function against you.
Yeah, It's really great.
There's of course the stuff with the souls. They are able to overcome his power. Effectively, you defeat him and you get to walk out. Once you walk out, you get the credits. I think that's still a point where you feel like you've just beaten the most exciting boss in the game, and I haven't seen enough yet at that point. Luckily, you get a call from Sans, who tells you what happened since you left. Apparently, just some time passed, and he still has your phone number.
Okay.
This talk is also very important game design thing for me. It reminds me of Dragon Age Origins, because what he says is based on what you did in the game, and even though you have little actual agency, like if you're analyzing the game from a deep perspective, it's basically a straight corridor, and at some points you can choose to be nice or bad.
Yeah.
Just like in Dragon Age, you often get to choose, like, am I going to side with these people or those people?
Oh yeah, I also want to mention Mass Effect. Yeah, the Mass Effect phenomenon, oscillating good and evil curve that leads to mostly the same story outcomes.
I would still like to praise the Dragon Age method.
Okay.
Like that one's just a still image and some text that says, you finished this quest in this way. Here's what happened. That's like all I want. If there's a game that gives me agency, just let me know what happened.
Oh yeah, okay.
Mass Effect often did it worse, and I think Undertale did it in the best possible way because it mixes up the different choices you made. They're interwoven.
Yeah.
I'm going to do all the listeners who haven't gone this deeply into the game, as deeply as I have, a service, because I basically analyzed all the possible speeches that Sans can give, and I have distilled them into a pattern.
Okay.
Basically, if Toriel lives, she's going to come out of the ruins and take over the throne. If Undyne also lives, and she's not your friend, she's going to rebel. If you have killed 10 non-boss enemies, that's basically always the indication that the monsters down there see you as an evil person, and they're going to support Undyne, at which point she's basically going to start a new anti-human evil empire and planning to one day break the barrier, get out and start a new human-monster war. If neither Toriel nor Undyne survived, Metaton is going to take over and build his Metaton empire.
And everything is MTT branded products?
Yeah.
Nice.
It's a bit silly. I think it's a bit dystopian. People tend to disappear if they disagree with him.
Yeah, but it's definitely not as silly as...
If Metaton isn't there, then there's going to be the Papyrus government.
Yes.
Who is, of course, completely inept, and Sans does most of the work while staying in secret. I guess he's not happy about all of this because he doesn't like doing work.
Yeah.
Do you remember the policies Papyrus enacts?
Since this was definitely not the ending I got, not specifically something, I don't know, are there spaghetti policies?
He does cook spaghetti for everyone. Papyrus ending is not super happy because if he's the ruler, then most important people are dead. Like, he's being as positive as he can.
No.
But
it's just not that good.
Yeah, most people want to give up, and he's just trying to keep them from completely giving up.
Jeez. Yeah, that's super sad, actually.
If all the bosses are dead and you haven't killed any other monsters, then you get the dog ending, where the small dog becomes the president of the underground.
This is okay. This is amazing.
It says that this is the best outcome for everyone, but not why, because he's mostly sleeping.
So is that like a pledge for an anarchy?
I think that's like the UFO ending of Silent Hill games.
Yeah.
It's just the silly...
Yeah, I mean, it's also also dog ending, so yeah.
Yeah, right. Those also have dog endings, right. If all the bosses are dead and you killed at least one monster, then there's just nobody left and nobody's going to take the throne. Sans has no motivation to take over because Papyrus is dead.
Yeah.
That's the saddest possible, really neutral ending, I think. If any bosses died that aren't in this hierarchy, they're going to be mentioned too, but they're not changing the overall structure. So it's really, if Toriel lives, she's the queen. If Undyne lives, she's going to rebel. If neither are there, Metaton, otherwise Papyrus, otherwise dog ending or leaderless ending.
Yeah, I see.
There are a bunch of mentions of stuff you could have done, like if you brought the snowflake to this point, several hard mode versions, like never saving, never wearing anything but the bandages you start with. Like, it's a really in-depth system. It reacts to a lot of things you did, and it's all systemic, I think, because he considers all the possible outcomes. I really appreciate it, even though if you're only playing it once, there's not that much difference you're going to notice. But like, if you're only playing it once, you'll just feel that the things you did had an actual impact.
Yeah, it's just like insane what amounts of content there are that most players probably don't see. I don't know if most players, but like if you just like played it through once and are not a lot on Reddit or like don't watch YouTube theory videos or something, then you miss out on at least 70% of what's there or something, or more. I don't know.
Of the endings?
No, of story in general. I would love to see his notes on the endings, like what possibilities were there, like his brain work. That'd be really interesting.
I didn't mention the positive ways you can end. If Papyrus is a friend, it doesn't matter for the endings, because he's just nice, but not important to the overall underground world.
Yeah.
But he's the key for all future friends, because he has to be your friend so that Undyne can be your friend. And if she's your friend, then you get the good neutral ending, like the best case for just first playthrough, where everyone who can be your friend is your friend and everyone is alive. That's kind of a hopeful version where Toriel stays the queen and they're probably just going to carry on. Things are looking okay.
Yeah, I think it's also like one of the most unlikely endings to happen in first neutral run, because like, I mean, not killing Toriel alone is a thing most people don't do in the first run.
And the second challenge, which we're going to get to in the next episode, is, to me at least, finding out that Undyne lives in the fishhead house.
Yeah.
Like, in retrospect, of course she's going to live in the house in the shape of a fish head. Like, who else is going to live there?
Yeah, I mean, like, especially even the fins of the fish look exactly like hers.
But, like, I didn't make that connection. And
no, me neither.
I wouldn't have considered it. That's almost a thing you may need to look up if you're playing this blind and trying to do well. At this point, we're done with the entire neutral playthrough. And next time we're going to meet, we are going to try again. We're doing pacifist playthrough, as it's called. And we're starting over fresh, because we have to.
Yeah.
And that's the time when the game actually gets good. I think if you stopped Undertale after what we have just discussed, then it's a fun 8 out of 10 game. Had some lulls. Okay, nice indie title.
Yeah.
Everything that I actually care about happens the second time through.
Yeesh. Yeah. Way to go, I'd say. Yeah, but it's so worth. It's so worth.
Super worth.
And that was episode 2. This time we used Map of All of Undertale by Reddit user named RQAA3721, the song Pepper Steak from the Off soundtrack. Hoi, I'm Tammy by the SoundCloud user Plaster Links. We used Final Fantasy VI's Aria di Mezzo Carattere. Then we used audio from Gears of War 3. Okay. Also a clip from Vinesource, the Game of Thrones discussion Season 6 Episode 1, and the song Awake from the game Castlevania Circle of the Moon. Bye bye.